Admiral Kate Warren watched the alien representatives with a calm face that hid her growing anger. The large round table of the Galactic Council chamber held 20 different species from across the galaxy. Humans were the newest arrivals, and it showed in how they were treated. Earth must reduce its military fleet by 85%, said Zorlak, the tall, gray-skinned Volutian. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he spoke. This is non-negotiable. Kate looked at her fellow humans. Paul Hayes, Earth's chief diplomat, sat beside her with his hands folded tightly. His knuckles had turned white. Dr. Olivia Martinez, Earth's leading xenobiologist, frowned as she made notes on her tablet. Colonel Sam Nichols, military advisor, had a dangerous glint in his eyes that Kate recognized from their years serving together. Gregory Bennett, cultural attaché, simply looked tired after 3 weeks of failed talks. Additionally, continued Zorlak, all human settlements beyond your home solar system must be surrendered to Council control for proper redistribution. A murmur of agreement passed through the alien representatives. The spider-like Zilthak clicked their mandibles in approval. The gaseous Mavorians pulsed in their containment suits. The crystalline Forians chimed softly. And human faster-than-light technology must be fully shared with the Council Technical Committee, added Drev, the blue-scaled Arctovian representative. Your current jump drive designs show concerning deviations from Council standards. Kate had heard enough. She stood slowly, her tall human frame towering over several of the alien species. The room fell silent. For 3 standard weeks, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We have listened to your demands. We have offered compromise after compromise. We have shown good faith at every turn. She placed her palms flat on the table and leaned forward slightly. But Earth will not disarm itself to satisfy your fears. We will not abandon our colonists who have built lives on distant worlds, and we will not surrender the technologies that our scientists developed independently. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The Trill ambassador, a slender humanoid with spotted skin, looked particularly troubled. Admiral Warren, said High Counselor Zelmar, the ancient Quarian whose species had founded the Galactic Council 10,000 years earlier. Surely you understand our position. Your species has advanced from primitive spaceflight to competitive faster-than-light technology in less than a century. Such rapid development is unprecedented and concerning. Kate smiled without warmth. And that is precisely why we cannot accept your terms. You fear what you don't understand. You see our rapid growth as a threat rather than an achievement. She straightened up and began collecting her documents. The people of Earth extended friendship to the galactic community. We believed your talk of peace and cooperation. But these are not the demands of friends or allies. These are the demands of those who seek to control what they fear. Paul Hayes stood as well, a signal for the rest of the human delegation to do the same. The council chamber erupted in alarmed voices. You cannot simply walk away from these talks, shouted Drev, his scales turning a deeper blue in agitation. Watch us, replied Colonel Nichols, speaking for the first time in the session. Kate held up her hand for silence from her team. She wanted her next words to be perfectly clear. The people of Earth hereby formally withdraw from peace talks with the Galactic Council. We will return to negotiate when you are prepared to treat us as equals, not subjects. She turned to leave but stopped at Zelmar's voice. Admiral Warren, please reconsider. Without Council protection and technology, Earth will be isolated. There are dangers in the galaxy that your young species cannot imagine. Kate turned back, her expression softening slightly. We survived alone before we met you. We will survive alone again if necessary. But remember this. We came seeking friends, not masters. The human delegation walked out of the council chamber in perfect formation. As the massive doors closed behind them, Kate allowed herself a small sigh. Well, said Paul, that could have gone better. On the contrary, replied Kate, it went exactly as we expected. Gregory Bennett, the cultural attaché, looked nervous. The council controls all major trade routes. They can cut us off from the rest of the galaxy. Let them try, said Colonel Nichols with a tight smile. Dr. Martinez checked her secure communicator. The observation team reports that Council ships are already moving to establish a blockade around our solar system. They're not wasting any time. Kate nodded as they boarded their shuttle. Also as expected, once they were safely aboard and the shuttle was heading back to their ship, Kate activated the secure communication system. Shadow Protocol is now active. Authorization Warren Delta 79. The system beeped in acknowledgement. Paul looked at her with raised eyebrows. You're actually doing it, activating the Shadow Fleet? The Council left us no choice, said Kate. They were never going to accept us as equals, not when they see our rapid development as a threat. On the main screen, a message appeared. Shadow Protocol activated. Fleet assets responding. What exactly is the Shadow Fleet? Asked Gregory, who had not been briefed on the military contingency plans. Colonel, Nichols smiled grimly. Insurance. Kate explained. While we've been negotiating openly, Earth has quietly positioned 67 of our most advanced ships throughout Council space, not as an attack force, but as leverage. Dr. Martinez nodded in approval. The Council thinks they can isolate us because they believe we only have the 20 ships we've shown them. They think we're confined to our solar system and a handful of nearby colonies, added Paul. They have no idea how far we've actually explored, or how many worlds we've contacted independently of Council oversight. The shuttle docked with their diplomatic vessel, the EDF Concord. As they made their way to the bridge, crew members nodded respectfully to Kate, but there was tension in the air. Everyone knew what withdrawal from the peace talks meant. On the bridge, Kate took her place in the command chair. Communications, send a message to Earth. Inform President Clark that the Council rejected our terms and we have withdrawn as planned. Shadow Protocol is active. The communications officer nodded. Yes, Admiral. Kate turned to her executive officer. Set course for the rendezvous point. Maximum speed once we're clear of Council space. What do you think the Council will do when they realize we're not as helpless as they thought? Asked Gregory, still trying to process the implications. Kate looked at the view screen, where the massive Council station was already growing smaller, as they pulled away. They'll be angry, they'll feel deceived, and then hopefully they'll understand their mistake. Colonel Nichols snorted. Or they'll declare war. If they do, said Kate quietly, they'll learn that the people of Earth do not surrender easily. But that's not what I'm hoping for. Paul nodded in understanding. You want them to recognize us as equals and come back to the table. Exactly, said Kate. Sometimes you have to show strength to create peace. The Council understands power. Now we'll show them ours. As the Concord jumped to faster-than-light speed, Kate sent a private message to General Eric Patterson, commander of the Shadow Fleet. It contained just 3 words. The storm begins. Across Council space, human ships emerged from hiding, taking up positions near vital infrastructure, but making no aggressive moves. The message was clear. Humans were not confined to their home system. They were not helpless, and they would not be controlled. The real negotiations were about to begin. General Eric Patterson stood on the bridge of the EDF Invictus, hidden deep within the swirling gases of the Arcturus Nebula. The massive warship, nearly twice the size of anything Earth had officially registered with the Galactic Council, hummed with power as its systems came fully online. Message from Admiral Warren, sir, said Communications Officer Lisa Reed. Shadow Protocol is now active. Eric nodded, his face serious. Send the activation code to all Shadow Fleet vessels. Tell them to move to Phase 1 positions but maintain stealth protocols. No aggressive actions unless directly threatened. Yes, sir, Lisa replied, her fingers moving quickly across her console. Lieutenant Commander Allison Reeves approached with a data pad. Shadow Fleet status report, General. All 67 vessels are reporting combat ready. Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels. Eric took the pad and reviewed the information. For 6 months, while diplomats talked peace with the Council, the Shadow Fleet had quietly moved into position throughout Council space. Not as an invasion force, but as insurance against exactly the kind of arrogance the Council had displayed. The Council thinks they can just box us in, Eric said, shaking his head, as if humans would ever allow that. They don't understand us, Allison agreed. They see our rapid advancement as a threat rather than what it really is, survival. Eric walked to the main view screen, which showed a tactical map of Council space with the positions of all Shadow Fleet vessels marked in blue. Update from Earth Command? President Clark is addressing the United Nations Security Council now, Lisa said. All Earth colonies have been notified of withdrawal from peace talks. Defense grids are being activated planet-wide. On Earth, President Danielle Clark stood before the assembled representatives of humanity's nations. Her voice was firm as she spoke. For too long, we have suffered the Council's thinly veiled contempt. They view our rapid advancement not as achievement to be celebrated, but as a threat to be contained. Today we have withdrawn from a peace process that was never about peace but about control. The chamber was silent. Everyone understood what withdrawal meant. Possible isolation from the galactic community, potential conflict. But we are not unprepared, continued the president. While we negotiated in good faith, we also took measures to protect our interests. The Shadow Fleet is deployed and ready, our colonies are secured, and technologies we have kept private from the Council are now being activated. In an underground facility beneath the Olympus Mons on Mars, Dr. Alan West supervised a team of scientists and engineers as they brought the quantum communication array online. The massive structure had been built in secret, hidden from Council observers who regularly visited the public Mars colony. Power levels stable, reported Dr. Julie Grant, Alan's deputy. QEC links established with all colonies and Shadow Fleet vessels. Alan smiled with satisfaction. The Quantum Entanglement Communications Network was one of humanity's greatest achievements, and one they had carefully kept hidden from the Council. Unlike conventional communications that could be intercepted or blocked, the QEC used paired, quantum particles to transmit information instantly across any distance. It was impossible to jam or monitor. Send the test signal, Alan ordered. Julie entered the command, and seconds later the confirmation signals appeared on their screens from outposts as far as the Andromeda Galaxy. Earth would not be silenced or isolated, no matter what the Council did. Back on the Invictus, Eric received the QEC signal with a nod of approval. Now we wait, he told his officers. The ball is in the Council's court. He didn't have to wait long. Within 6 hours, Council ships began moving into blockade positions around Earth's solar system. They're trying to cut us off, Allison observed as they watched the tactical display. Standard Council containment protocol. Eric almost smiled. Little do they know. On the Council homeworld of Quoria, the emergency session had been going for hours. High Counselor Zelmar struggled to maintain order as representatives from 20 species argued about the human withdrawal. We should crush them now while they are contained, shouted Drev, the Arctovian. Their defiance sets a dangerous precedent. Ambassador, Trill from the Phobian Collective raised her voice to be heard. I caution against hasty action. The humans showed unusual confidence upon their departure. Primitive bravado. Drev dismissed her concern. Their species has barely achieved interstellar travel. What possible threat could they pose? That is precisely what concerns me, replied Trill. Their negotiators were too calm, too accepting of isolation. They acted as if they had alternatives we don't know about. Zelmar raised his ancient, wizened hand for silence. The blockade is established. Earth is contained. Their colonies will be occupied within days. Without access to Council trade routes and technologies, they will soon recognize their dependence on us and return to negotiations on our terms. The answer to Drev's question about what threat humans might pose came sooner than expected. Throughout Council space, communication hubs detected unusual energy signatures. Suddenly, reports flooded in from dozens of systems. Human ships had appeared near critical infrastructure. Jump gates, trading posts, mining facilities, and Council military bases. On the mining world of Carthos IV, Governor Lurvex received an unexpected visitor in his office. Captain Frank Nelson of the Earthship Vigilant stood before him, calm and professional in his black uniform. The Council's planned embargo against Earth has been neutralized, Frank stated simply. We are now offering direct trade agreements to individual worlds bypassing council authority. The governor's three eyes blinked rapidly in confusion. But how did you get here? The council controls all transit routes. Frank smiled slightly. The council only controls the routes they know about. Similar scenes played out across council space as hidden human vessels revealed themselves, not with weapons charged, but with offers of trade, technology, and alliance. On the Invictus, Eric received reports of the council's reaction with grim satisfaction. Phase 1 complete, he told his officers. The council now understands we are not confined to our solar system. Allison looked concerned. Will they attack our ships? They might, Eric acknowledged. But that would mean war with Earth. A war they now realize would not be as one-sided as they thought. A communication alert sounded and Lisa announced, "Priority message from Shadow Vessel Delta in the Trill system. They report Council military vessels are moving to intercept." Eric straightened his uniform. "Inform Captain Rodriguez to maintain position but power up shields. Weapons on standby only. We won't fire first, but we will defend ourselves." He turned to face his bridge crew. The next few days will determine whether the galaxy faces war or a new understanding. Our job is to make sure the Council recognizes their mistake before anyone starts shooting. Across human colonies and on Earth itself, people watch news reports of the developing situation with a mixture of pride and anxiety. They had known this day might come, when humanity would have to stand on its own against a galaxy that didn't understand them. But they weren't truly alone. In the shadows of Council space, human ships stood ready. And in places, the Council had never looked. Allies waited who understood what the Council did not. Humanity didn't want to rule the galaxy. They just refused to be ruled. High Counselor Zelmar of the Galactic Council sat in his private chamber, his ancient face lined with worry. Reports from across Council space filled his screens. Human ships had appeared at strategic locations throughout the galaxy, seemingly out of nowhere. How had they deployed so many vessels without detection? And where had these ships come from? The humans had only officially registered 20 ships with the Council. A soft chime announced the arrival of his advisors. Zelmar straightened his ceremonial robes and tried to look confident as the doors slid open. Ambassador Trill of the Phobian Collective entered first, her spotted skin looking pale with stress. Behind her came the military commander Drev of the Arctovian Imperium, his blue scales darkened with anger. Several other council members followed, all with grim expressions. "The human situation has escalated," said Zelmar, stating the obvious. "What are our options?" Drev slammed his scaled fist on the table. "We should destroy their ships immediately. They have violated council law by hiding their true military capabilities." Trill shook her head. "That would be a grave mistake. These human vessels have positioned themselves near critical infrastructure. Any attack could damage our own facilities. More importantly," added Counselor Jix of the Mavorians, his voice bubbling through his translator as his gaseous form swirled. "In its containment suit, the humans are not acting aggressively. They are offering trade agreements to individual worlds, bypassing council authority." Drev hissed in anger. "That is precisely the problem. They undermine our authority. Already 17 systems have reported receiving human diplomatic missions." Zelmar raised his hand for quiet. "What do we know about these human ships? How did they evade our detection systems?" A holographic display activated in the center of the room, showing technical scans of a human vessel. "Their stealth technology is like nothing we've encountered," explained the Zilthak representative, clicking his mandibles. "They appear to bend sensor signals around their hulls rather than absorbing or deflecting them." "And their numbers?" asked Zelmar. "We have confirmed 67 vessels so far," replied the Zilthak. "But there could be more we haven't detected." Trill looked troubled. "High Counselor, I believe we have made a serious miscalculation regarding the humans. They are clearly more advanced than we assumed," Drev growled. "Or they stole the technology from other species." "Unlikely," countered Jix. "The design principles are uniquely human. They solved the same problems we did, but in completely different ways." On the mining world of Carthos IV, Governor Lurvex faced a difficult decision. The human captain Frank Nelson had offered a trade agreement that would benefit his world enormously. Earth would provide advanced agricultural technology in exchange for raw minerals. The deal would bypass council tariffs, resulting in much better terms for the people of Carthos, but the council had expressly forbidden direct dealings with Earth. The council provides protection and stability, Lurvex said cautiously. Frank nodded respectfully. And we have no wish to disrupt that. But ask yourself, has the council ever offered you the technologies we're offering? Or have they kept your world dependent on their approved development path? The governor's three eyes blinked in sequence as he considered this. It was true that the council strictly controlled technology distribution, claiming it was for the safety of younger species. What guarantees do we have that Earth won't abandon us if the council retaliates? He asked. Frank smiled. The ship you see orbiting your world is not our only presence in this system. We've had an outpost on your outer moon for 3 years. The council never noticed because they only look where they expect to find things. Lurvex was shocked. 3 years? Impossible. Your people deserved a chance to develop at your own pace, not one dictated by the council, Frank explained. We've been studying your culture, your needs. That's why our offer is tailored specifically to help your agriculture in your planet's unique climate. Similar conversations were happening throughout council space. Human diplomats revealed that Earth had been exploring and establishing hidden outposts for years, building relationships with local populations while avoiding council notice. Back, in the council chamber, the emergency session had turned into chaos. How did they build these outposts without our knowledge? Demanded one representative. The same way they deployed their fleet, replied Trill. They think differently than we do. We've been so focused on controlling known space that we never considered someone might use the spaces we don't watch. A communication officer rushed in with a new report. High Counselor, we've just received word that the Mechatron Collective is negotiating with Earth for artificial intelligence technology. Drev's scales turned almost black with rage. The Mechatrons, they've been petitioning us for AI advancements for decades, which we've denied them, Trill pointed out softly, citing safety concerns. Because it is unsafe, Drev snapped. Perhaps, said Jix thoughtfully. But the humans appear to have solved the control problems differently. Their AI designs include ethical frameworks we hadn't considered. Zelmar stood slowly, his ancient form seeming to bear an even heavier weight than usual. We are facing a fundamental challenge to council authority. The humans have not fired a single shot, yet they threaten the entire order we have maintained for 10,000 years by offering better terms and technologies we've withheld, noted Trill. By undermining our carefully designed development paths for younger species, countered Drev. On board the human diplomatic vessel Concord, Admiral Kate Warren received updates from across council space. Phase 1 of Shadow Protocol was proceeding better than expected. Already 23 worlds had expressed interest in direct trade agreements with Earth. The council is in emergency session, reported her communications officer. Their military vessels are on high alert but have not engaged our ships. Paul Hayes, the diplomat, looked satisfied. They've realized that attacking us would cause more problems than it would solve. For now, cautioned Colonel Sam Nichols. But Drev and the military faction will push for a show of force. They can't afford to lose face. Kate nodded. That's why Phase 2 begins tomorrow. Dr. Martinez, is your team ready? Olivia Martinez smiled. The scientific delegation is prepared. We'll reveal the medical technologies we've been developing. Treatments for diseases the Council has deemed too difficult to address. The Council claims those diseases are natural. Population controls, said Gregory Bennett, frowning. Their non-interference directive, which conveniently maintains the status quo and keeps certain species dependent on Council aid, replied Kate. We're offering a different approach. As night fell across Council space, the political landscape had already begun to shift. For thousands of years, the Council had maintained control through carefully managed technology distribution and trade routes. The humans had just demonstrated that their entire system could be bypassed. In his private chamber, High Counselor Zelmar reviewed the reports once more. The humans had achieved in days what would have taken other species centuries, not through military might, but through offering choices the Council had denied. They never needed our approval to become a galactic power, he murmured to himself. They were merely extending us the courtesy of peaceful integration. For the first time in his 300-year life, Zelmar wondered if the Council's fundamental approach might be wrong. 3 months had passed since the humans withdrew from the peace talks. The galaxy had changed more in those 3 months than in the previous century. 17 Council worlds had now signed independent treaties with Earth, gaining access to technologies the Council had previously restricted. On the agricultural world of Nebus, Governor Susan Chen watched as human engineers installed the final components of a weather control system. The tall, green-skinned Nebusians gathered around, their large eyes wide with hope. Their world had suffered a devastating drought for decades. Will it really work? Asked Elder Klex, his voice trembling with emotion. Susan nodded. The system analyzes your planet's natural weather patterns and makes small adjustments to encourage rainfall in the most needed areas. Within 6 months, your northern continent should see regular precipitation again. The Council told us this was impossible, said another elder. That our world's climate was naturally shifting and we should relocate our populations instead. It's not impossible, Susan explained gently. Just difficult. Earth faced similar climate challenges a century ago. We had to solve them to survive. Lead engineer Ben Harris approached with a data pad. Final calibrations are complete, Governor. The system is online and functioning perfectly. Susan smiled and turned to the gathered Nebusians. As agreed in our treaty, we ask only for fair trade and friendship in return. Earth doesn't want control of your world or your resources. We believe every species deserves the right to determine their own path. As she spoke, Council observation ships hovered in the distance, watching but not interfering. Since the human revelation 3 months ago, the Council had shifted from threats to careful observation. In another part of the galaxy, the Mechatron Collective was experiencing its own transformation. The mechanical species had long been limited by Council restrictions on artificial intelligence development, officially for safety concerns. Chief Engineer William Foster stood in the central processing chamber of the Mechatron homeworld, watching, as human technicians installed quantum processing cores in their main servers. Your approach to artificial intelligence is fundamentally different from Council systems, William told Nexus 7, the Mechatron leader whose cylindrical body housed an advanced consciousness. How so? Asked Nexus 7, its voice a pleasant, synthetic tone. Council AI systems are designed with hard limitations and external controls, William explained. We build ours as partners, with embedded ethical frameworks that evolve alongside their capabilities. Our AIs helped design these cores. The Council claimed advanced AI would inevitably turn against organic life, said Nexus 7. William shook his head. That's because they design them as tools, not as thinking beings with rights and responsibilities. Our approach acknowledges their personhood from the beginning. Throughout Council space, the effects of human technology and diplomatic outreach were rippling outward. Council trade routes were increasingly bypassed as human jump drive technology offered more efficient alternatives to the carefully controlled Council navigation networks. On her flagship, the Invictus, Admiral Kate Warren met with her team to assess the situation. The large holographic display in the conference room showed a map of Council space, with human allied worlds highlighted in green. The number was growing steadily. Phase 2 has exceeded expectations, reported Dr. Olivia Martinez. Our medical technologies have been particularly effective in winning allies. The cure for Trevanian fever on Proxima III gained us 5 new treaty partners alone. The Council is scrambling to respond, added Paul Hayes. They've begun offering some of their restricted technologies to worlds showing interest in human treaties. Colonel Sam Nichols looked concerned. But their military buildup continues. Drev's faction is pushing for a show of force. Kate studied the tactical display carefully. Any direct attacks on human vessels? No, replied Sam. But they've established military blockades around several key systems that haven't yet decided. Whether to ally with Earth or remain loyal to the Council. Classic intimidation tactics, noted Gregory Bennett. They're trying to scare potential allies away from us. Kate turned to her communications officer. Contact the Shadow Fleet commanders. Tell them to initiate Phase 3. In the increasingly desperate council chamber, High Counselor Zelmar faced growing divisions among the representatives. The council, once unified in its authority, was now split between those who favored accommodation with the humans and those who demanded a military response. 23 worlds now have direct treaties with Earth, reported a Quarian aide, and 12 more are in negotiations. The treaties are all public, completely transparent. Transparency is just another human trick, growled Drev. They show these beneficial agreements to lure more worlds away from Council protection, Ambassador Trill sighed. Or perhaps transparency is simply their way. Have we considered that possibility? That they genuinely aren't seeking control, just cooperation? Naive, shouted Drev. No species advances as quickly as humans have without ambition for dominance. Zelmar raised his hand for silence. The reality we face is that the humans have exposed flaws in our system that have existed for millennia. Many worlds are choosing their technological offerings over our established order. Because they don't understand the dangers, Drev insisted. Or because we've been too restrictive, countered Jix of the Mavorians. My own world has benefited enormously from human environmental technology. Technology the Council deemed unnecessary for our development path. The debate was interrupted by an urgent message. The holographic display shifted to show Council patrol ships near the Cygnus Gate, one of the major transit hubs controlled by the Council. Human ships are approaching the Cygnus Gate, reported the patrol commander. 5 vessels, larger than any we've seen before. Intercept them, ordered Drev immediately. Wait, said Zelmar. What are they doing? The display zoomed in to show the human vessels. They were not moving into attack positions. Instead, they appeared to be establishing a position parallel to the gate. They're building something, said the patrol commander, confusion evident in his voice. The Council watched in stunned silence as the human ships deployed massive components that quickly took shape as a new structure beside the Cygnus Gate. It's some kind of alternative transit gate, whispered Trill in amazement. Indeed, within hours, the humans had constructed a working jump gate beside the Council's. As they watched, ships from various species began using the human gate instead of the Council one. This is outrageous, bellowed Drev. They're stealing our transit fees. The human gate is charging 1/10 our fees, noted Jix, and their transit time is half of ours. In an increasingly desperate voice, Drev demanded, how are we supposed to maintain order if they undermine our economic model? Trill's voice was quiet but clear. Perhaps that's a question we should have asked ourselves centuries ago. Throughout Council space, human ships were doing the same thing at every major transit hub, building alternative gates that offered faster, cheaper travel options. The Council's monopoly on interstellar travel, one of its primary means of control, was being broken system by system. Zelmar watched the reports flood in with a heavy heart. The humans never needed our approval to become a galactic power, he finally acknowledged. They were merely extending us the courtesy of peaceful integration. In the silence that followed, even Drev had no argument to offer. 1 standard year had passed since the humans withdrew from the peace talks. The Galactic Council had spent that year watching their carefully maintained order transform. Now, High Counselor Zelmar stood on the neutral ground of the Proxima Centauri system, facing the inevitable. The human diplomatic headquarters was a simple but elegant structure on an uninhabited planet. It had been built specifically for this meeting. Zelmar and a small delegation of council representatives waited in the entry hall, surrounded by artwork and scientific displays from dozens of species, not just humans. The doors opened, and Admiral Kate Warren entered, alongside the newly appointed human ambassador Ryan Miller. A year ago, Kate had walked out of the council chambers in protest. Today, she was welcoming the council as an equal. High Counselor, she said with a respectful nod. Thank you for coming. Zelmar returned the gesture. Admiral Warren. Ambassador Miller, The Galactic Council appreciates your willingness to meet. They moved to a large circular table, designed so that all participants sat at the same level, a subtle but significant change from the Council's traditional hierarchical arrangement. "Let me begin by stating our position clearly," said Zelmar. "The Galactic Council formally recognizes the sovereignty of Earth and all human colonies. We propose new negotiations as equals, with no preconditions." Kate's expression remained neutral. "The Council's recognition changes nothing about humanity's status. It merely acknowledges reality, but we accept your proposal for new talks." Drev, the Arctovian military commander, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His scales had faded to a pale blue, a sign of stress among his species. "We must address the alternative transit gates. They have disrupted established trade patterns. By offering more efficient options," said Ryan Miller calmly. "Our gates have reduced transit costs by 70% across the galaxy. Smaller worlds can now afford to trade directly with each other instead of going through council hubs." Ambassador Trill nodded. "That's precisely the point. The change has been beneficial for many worlds, but it has reduced council authority." "Perhaps council authority was too extensive," suggested Kate. "A central governing body can provide valuable coordination, but not if it restricts growth and self-determination." The discussions continued for hours, covering every aspect of the new reality that humanity had created. The council representatives gradually realized that the humans weren't seeking to replace the council's authority with their own. They genuinely wanted a more balanced system where each species could develop according to their own needs and abilities. "Your approach is unexpected," admitted Zelmar finally. "We anticipated demands for Earth to take a seat on the High Council, or for special privileges." Ryan smiled slightly. "We don't want to rule the galaxy, High Counselor. We just refuse to be ruled." After the formal meetings concluded, Kate and Ryan walked through the gardens outside the diplomatic building. The twin suns of Proxima Centauri cast a golden glow over the landscape. "Do you think they understand even now what their mistake was?" asked Ryan. Kate looked out at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "They assumed technological advancement correlates with civilization age. They couldn't grasp that isolation forced us to solve problems differently." She paused near a fountain that combined water and light in a mesmerizing display, a gift from the Aquarian Collective, one of Earth's newest allies. "When most species were guided into the galactic community," Kate continued, "they followed established patterns. They learned to use council technology, council methods, council thinking. Humanity had to innovate alone." "And now?" asked Ryan. "Now, they recognize that diversity of approach strengthens everyone. The council worlds that embrace trade with us have advanced more in 1 year than in the previous 20 under council restrictions." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "It's not just technology, though, is it? It's philosophy. The council believed in control and guidance. We believe in choice and cooperation." "Exactly," agreed Kate. "Our withdrawal wasn't about power. It was about demonstrating a fundamental truth." "Which is?" prompted Ryan. "That peace requires respect, not submission, and that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our military." Kate smiled. "It's our stubborn refusal to accept artificial limitations." Meanwhile, on a dozen worlds throughout the galaxy, the effects of this new understanding were taking shape. On Nebus, the rains had returned to the northern continent. Crops grew in fields that had been barren for generations. Governor Susan Chen stood with Elder Klex watching children play in puddles. "We would have relocated our people," said Klex quietly. "Abandoned our ancestral lands because the council told us it was the only option." Susan nodded. "Sometimes the hardest solutions are worth pursuing." On the Mechatron homeworld, the new AI cores had revolutionized their society. William Foster watched as mechanical beings and their AI partners worked together, creating new technologies that blended organic and synthetic thinking in ways the Council had never imagined. "We have something to show you," said Nexus 7, leading William to a large chamber. Inside was a medical facility where mechanical beings were repairing damaged organic life forms, plants, animals, and even sentient beings from other worlds. We've combined your biological knowledge with our precision engineering, explained Nexus 7. The Council always kept organic and synthetic technologies separate, but together, they're more powerful than either alone. Across Council space, the EO's old barriers were falling. Species that had been kept apart by Council doctrine found they had much to offer each other. Technologies that had been restricted were now being shared, improved upon, and combined in new ways. The alternative transit gates became meeting points where ideas and cultures mixed freely. Council ships and human vessels now moved alongside each other, not in confrontation but in cooperation. In the High Council chamber, now reformed with representatives from all species given equal voice, Zelmar addressed the new assembly. For 10,000 years, the Council guided the development of younger species according to our understanding of safety and progress. We believed our path was the only path. He paused, his ancient eyes showing new wisdom. The humans taught us otherwise. Ambassador Trill, now elevated to senior status, nodded in agreement. They showed us that true progress comes not from control but from freedom to explore different approaches, not from isolation, but from cooperation. Even Drev, who had most strongly opposed the humans, had changed his perspective. Their military strength was never their greatest power, he acknowledged. It was their adaptability, their willingness to see problems from new angles. Throughout Council space, a new era of cooperation was cautiously beginning, one based not on control, but on mutual respect and the recognition that different evolutionary paths led to different but equally valuable solutions. Humanity had never wanted war. They had simply refused to surrender their fundamental right to self-determination. In withdrawing from false peace, they had ultimately created the conditions for a genuine one. As Kate Warren looked out at the stars from Earth's first embassy to the galaxy, she allowed herself a moment of pride. "We came in peace," she whispered to herself. In the end, they understood what that really means.